Welcome to another best wildcard team video ahead of Matchday 3. This chip is going to be very popular this week, so this video could be for you. And even if you're not playing the wildcard, this can still be applicable in terms of your transfer plans. And be sure to check out the best limitless team video as well as the team selection that also may include a wildcard draft and talk about what I'm looking to do for my own team. So let's smash the like button, let's get this to over 300 likes, and let's push on to get to 15,000 subscribers. It'd be very much appreciated, and let's just jump straight into the video. I would go for Adan from Sporting Lisbon and Thibaut Courtois, who for me is the best UCL Fantasy goalkeeper in the game, as he was last season, so he kind of speaks for himself. And Real Madrid haven't been keeping too many clean sheets in general, but they have in the Champions League, which is what counts here. And Adan has been fairly impressive, and Sporting Lisbon even beat Spurs and kept a clean sheet. They've got some good games against Marseille, who are decent offensively, but you'd expect Sporting Lisbon to get the results and possibly one clean sheet from the next two. Then it's Tottenham in Matchday 5, but then in Matchday 6 against Frankfurt, there could also be the possibility of a clean sheet. And for only 4.5 million, I think Adan offers good value, and he's cheap, and it's not spending too much money in the goalkeeper position, which is the least important in UCL Fantasy and pretty much all fantasy formats. So I would go for Adan and Thibaut Courtois. Let me know if there's any other goalkeepers that you would go for instead, but I think at his price and below, Adan offers great value. I think there's maybe one or two potential issues in the defense, but Cancelo speaks for himself, and I would go for a Bayern Munich defender, with Lucas Hernandez being my preference right now with the ball recoveries in mind. But you also have a few others like Davis, who actually isn't that expensive, and he's only 5.5. He could be a really good option too. And the other one that's fairly locked in is a Real Madrid defender, and in this case it's Carvajal, but you do have others like Eder Militao who could actually go ahead and become the best Real Madrid defensive asset. And maybe doubling up on Real Madrid defense isn't everyone's cup of tea, but they've got a good group. They've been keeping clean sheets in the Champions League. They're one of the best teams, well, if not the best, in Champions League history in terms of their pedigree, the club, and how they always seem to get results in this competition. I would go for a double up, and Carvajal right now is my favourite. The two kind of dilemmas lie in Otamendi and Joel Matip, and Otamendi's facing PSG back to back, but I have him because at his price and below, I think he's the best, and he gets ball recoveries, and he's such a good UCL fantasy option. And Joel Matip might not be as appealing now because Konate is now back in training for Liverpool, so he could actually get some game time in the Champions League, and Matip plays in the Premier League, which is what happened last season. So I'm not sure exactly how Klopp is going to approach this, but Matip might not be as appealing as he once was, basically, when I made this wildcard draft. So bear that in mind, and those two are definitely interchangeable, and you could go to other options. So once again, I encourage you to leave your suggestions down in the comment section below, but I still think this is a very solid defense overall for the rest of the group stages. In the midfield, I would go for Leroy Sané. I think he's a lock, whether you're wildcarding, using transfers, or on the limitless. I think he's a fantastic option, and he's got a double header against Pilsen in match days 3 and 4, so he speaks for himself. Kudus is playing up front for Ajax, and I really like him. He's got a difficult group, but he is still doing a good job. He scored at Anfield, and at 5.2 million, you can't really go wrong. So I think he's the best option at that price and below, especially if you're looking for more offensive options, because the majority, like Florentino, who's on the bench here, he is there for the ball recoveries, and I really like him despite the fixtures because he can get you at least 3 or 4 points every single match day when needed, and he's only 4.5. He's a great enabler. And Joshua Kimmich is another one who's really good with ball recoveries, and he has attacking potential, so his ceiling is fairly high for a player at his price, and Bayern Munich are a team to target with these games against Pilsen. I would go for a double or a triple up, and I think Kimmich and Sané is completely fine. I'm not usually a huge fan of having two midfielders from the same team, but I think it makes sense in this case with the value that both of these options offer. And then you've got Kevin De Bruyne. You could go for 3 premium forwards instead, and that's fine, but then you also have to think about the balance of your squad, and you might have to go for a really cheap midfielder in place of De Bruyne, and you've already got Kimmich, Kudus, and Florentino, so you might have a relatively poor midfield on paper. So I would try to go for Kevin De Bruyne, if not Vinicius Jr., as well as Leroy Sané, and have a bit of money invested in the midfield. You've also got these kind of mid-price midfielders like Modric. There's always going to be someone else popping about like Foden, but I would go for these kind of midfielders who are reliable, that can also offer you different captaincy options like Kevin De Bruyne and Sané. So I would go for a midfield like this. I know that some people would love to have Mbappe, Lewandowski and Erling Haaland, but sometimes you have to be very wary about the price, and that's something you really want to target if anything on the Limitless, so be sure to check out that video as well. But that is my midfield on the wildcard, and I think you're very well set for, once again, the rest of the group stages, apart from Matchday 6, where there could be rotation, especially for teams like Bayern Munich and Man City, should they qualify by that stage already. But that's always going to be an issue every single year, so it's something just to think about as well. You can't have the perfect setup on the wildcard, but then again, this is still very, very good. I have exactly 0 million left in the bank with this squad. I've gone for Jutla, Mbappe and Erling Haaland. And when you're looking at budget forwards, it doesn't get much better than Jutla. You've got Brobby as well, but he's coming off the bench. He's not starting matches, so I think that's a fairly easy decision. And then you've got the two premiums, Haaland and Mbappe. They speak for themselves. They offer great captaincy options, but they do play on the same day. That's something worth bearing in mind. So if you still want someone that you really trust for the captaincy and you don't want to give it to someone like Sane, then you could go for Lewandowski instead of Mbappe, for example. But I do prefer the fixtures for PSG. And remember, Barcelona are facing Inter Milan back-to-back, and then they face Bayern Munich in Matchday 5. So I don't really like their assets as much. And on the wildcard, I probably would avoid most of them, if not all. But Lewandowski is such a good player. He's fixture-proof. Lewandowski was very underwhelming against his former club, Bayern Munich, but he is still a great option. And Barcelona played very well in that game, and Lewandowski had the opportunities. He just didn't take them, and that's not always going to happen. Mbappe has the highest ceiling, though, in Matchdays 3 and 4. And he has better fixtures in Matchdays 5 and 6 in my opinion, so I would go for him instead, but that's just my personal preference, and I think both of them would make for great captaincy options and great choices on the wildcard, and you can't really go wrong with either. And if anything, you can go for all three at once with Erling Haaland as well, but just recognise that the rest of your squad may be quite imbalanced, and Jutla, for example, offers great value anyway. So in terms of the captaincy, without Lewandowski really to rely upon, on the 4th of October, I would go for Leroy Sane, and then when you look at the 5th of October, I would probably go for Kylian Mbappe or Erling Haaland. If it was a Tuesday game for these City assets, I would actually favour Kevin De Bruyne, but Erling Haaland is kind of a safer pick, so to speak, so he's got higher ownership, and he's also more likely to return, but I think De Bruyne might have the better ceiling as a midfielder, and he also is a bonus points magnet, or in this case in UCL Fantasy, he's a magnet for the Man of the Match awards, which grants you 3 extra points. So I would probably go for something like this for the captaincy, and I would go on the 4th of October, I would probably go for Leroy Sane, and then on the 5th, I would go for Erling Haaland or Kylian Mbappe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below in terms of the captaincy, and the rest I think is fairly solid. There's a few areas here or there like Matip, Otamendi in particular, and you could say Jutla, but for the most part I think it's a very solid wildcard draft and there won't be many issues for you at all. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below about this wildcard team, and if you're not using the chip this week, when will you be using it? I'll be very curious to know, and I have made a video about this, the chip strategy guide, which is still applicable now because I offered an alternative strategy, not just the typical Limitless in Matchday 2 and the Wildcard in Matchday 3. I offered something else as well for those of you that might want to save the chips for later on in the season. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes and let's get to 15,000 subscribers. It'd be very much appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member. The links are in the description below. The same goes for the UCL Fantasy League and the Discord server, so all of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 3 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.